Great. So we are going to get started here. Welcome, everybody. My name is Yanette, and I am the STEM Program Director at Cypress College here in North Orange County in California. And we just want to give you a warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here on a beautiful Friday afternoon. And so we're going to get started. We have three amazing individuals here with us. Super excited that they're going to be here to share some golden information with you. And I'm going to just start off a brief introduction, and then I'm going to hand over the stage so that they can share further. So first, we have Dr. Madeline Diaz Ochoa from UC Davis. He's the UC Davis Chancellor's Postdoctoral Fellow from University of California, Davis. And then we have Dr. Madeline Diaz, postdoctoral researcher in neuroscience from the Miami Project to Cure Paralysis at University of Miami. And then we have Dr. Cheryl Harrison, assistant professor from University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. So let's give them all warm welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And so we're just gonna get started with some questions here. So tell us a little bit about your educational and professional journey and what got you to where you are today.
Hi, everyone. I guess I will begin. So first off, thank you so much to the SACNAS Organizing Committee for hosting this amazing event. I sincerely wish that I knew about this, or that this event was held when I was a two-year college student back in the day. And thank you all for attending, for your time, for your attention. And thank you for the introduction. So my name is Dr. Madeline Diaz, and I am a neuroscientist. So my official job title, yes, is a postdoctoral fellow here at the University of Miami in Florida, where the lab that I study has to do with mechanisms of cell injury, cell repair, synaptic repair after injury. So after a trauma, an accident, whether it's the brain or the spinal cord, so essentially how the system, the nervous system can sort of repair. How plastic is it? Can it repair? Can it function close to normal again after such an accident? So that's the work that I do now. I was not always necessarily in this field. So I did my PhD at Brandeis University, which is in the Boston area. And my graduate thesis, my PhD, was in circadian rhythms, very different from injury and synaptic repair and plasticity. Circadian rhythms, if you're unfamiliar with it, it's essentially your cycle, your internal clock, right? Your cycle to be awake or to be asleep during the night, and how your internal clock can govern a huge part of your body, from a protein level, from a receptor level, from synaptic circuitry, plasticity also, and also from a gene expression, so changes in DNA and RNA as well. And so my graduate work was with Dr. Michael Rasbash, who, if you are aware, he was awarded the Nobel Prize back in 2017 when I was a graduate student in his lab, which was unexpected and a complete surprise and a pleasant surprise for everybody. So that was in Boston. So kind of, I'm going reverse order, I guess. But as an undergraduate, I did my bachelor's here at the University of Miami. So I'm born and raised in Miami. My parents left Cuba. They're Cuban immigrants, political refugees, actually. And so they came to Miami to give me a better life, my brother and myself. And so I was born and raised in Miami again. That was my bubble, that was my circle, that was my world. So for undergrad, I stayed in Miami. I was perfectly happy here. I had a good opportunity here. And so right after high school, I attended Miami-Dade Community College, where I got my 2-year associate's degree in biology. And talking with my professors and with some really exciting early opportunities that as a 2-year community college student, I was able to transfer to the University of Miami, where I was able to do my undergrad. I was able to continue to do research. I ended up switching my major from psychology to neuroscience because I really liked the chemistry aspect of it, and with the further biology courses, the more advanced biology courses, that really fascinated me to pursue neuroscience. So my PhD was in neuroscience, and I'm still doing neuroscience research. The topic itself has, as I mentioned, is very different. For undergrad, I did something completely else. For my graduate work, I did circadian rhythms. Now I'm looking at something much more clinical in terms of traumatic brain injury and spinal cord injury. But that's how science goes. You just follow with your passion, and you have a good support network, and you just go. So no 2 days are the same. All right, I'm going to stop talking to allow for the other panelists to introduce themselves. So thank you, everyone.
That was awesome. Yeah, great to meet you, Madeline Diaz. So I prepared a few visuals to kind of share with you my journey, my story, and give you a glimpse into like what made me into me. And to really start off, I have, oh, by the way, this is my Twitter handle for the, if any of you want to connect via Twitter, that's one way. I chat with people. So feel free to hit me up on Twitter. But to start my introduction, I'm going to start with some family history. My parents grew up at a time when there was a lot of social unrest. When they were living in Mexico, my dad was coming to the U.S., specifically California, to work in agriculture. And so he was a farm worker, and he was also working with Cesar Chavez to organize farm workers, to unionize and to create a better life and working conditions for those people. And while in Mexico, my mom got into a bit of trouble. She's not pictured in this picture, but she and a bunch of other students were arrested by the Mexican government as they were demonstrating in Mexico City against the repressive practices of the government at that time. And so they kind of grew up in this environment where like there was a lot of things happening in the US and in Mexico, and they were pretty much a part of kind of a lot of that political and social upheaval. So when they had me, I think they had dreams of me being a revolutionary, because they named me after Vladimir Lenin, my first name, and Emiliano Zapata, which is Emiliano is my middle name. And so I think they had this hope that one day I would be instrumental in social change. But hopefully they're not too disappointed that I decided to become a scientist. But in some small ways, even as a scientist, I'm trying to facilitate social change. I grew up in this small town in the central coast of California called Santa Maria. And growing up Mexican American, it was challenging because I didn't really know where I actually fit in. I wasn't Mexican enough for the Mexicans, and I wasn't American enough for the Americans. And even growing up in Santa Maria, a small town, I remember one of my earliest experiences. This is City Hall. It's quite small, but I remember one of the earliest experiences that I had was going to a demonstration with my parents as they were protesting the practices of the governor at that time, who was pretty anti-immigrant, to say the least. So that's kind of the environment that I grew up in. I didn't picture myself becoming a scientist, but at some point in junior high, I got interested in biology, but I never let go of this dream of creating social change. Some of you might remember, if you're old enough, that there was an outbreak of E. coli in a Jack in a Box, and so I guess I had this junior high biology project where I had to tell a story about some aspect of a cell, and I chose a microbial pathogen, and you can see it got so heated that people decided to demonstrate and against Jack in the Box. And I'm not too sure if this is actually flames coming off of the burning Jack in the Box, or if people were actually throwing Molotov cocktails at the Jack in the Box that was responsible for that the spread of that disease. But anyways, this is where kind of those two worlds started to collide for me. But growing up, I didn't know any scientists, and my only pictures of what scientist was came from either popular culture or like history, right? And none of these scientists looked like me. I couldn't really relate to them personally. So it was very distant, kind of not even a dream that I think that I could accomplish one day. The closest person that I had in my life to a scientist, it was this man, Juan Figueroa, who has passed away, but he is my uncle, and he's a mathematician. And in Mexico, he was a professor at the university in Mexico City. So that was probably the closest thing to a scientist that I knew of growing up, but he was very far away, and there wasn't a lot of interaction with him. So I would say growing up, I didn't have a sense that this is something that I could pursue as a career. More recently, I remember watching this documentary on Jane Goodall, and there's this powerful scene at the beginning of this documentary where Jane Goodall, naturalist, was talking about her childhood and her dream of becoming a naturalist. But every time she would dream at night about being out in the wild, in the field, and studying animals and nature, she was always a man. Because when she was growing up, the only people that did that work were men. And so it was so powerful, right? Like these impressions that we get from social norms that, like, for Jane Goodall, like the only way that she could do that work, it was if she was a man. It wasn't until I started my educational track at Cerritos College, and I attended my very first SACNAS conference, that I actually saw a group of scientists that I could relate to, that looked more like me, that had life experiences that I could resonate with. And so it was at a SACNAS conference that I really dreamt about the possibility of becoming a scientist. And so when I transferred to UC Irvine, where I eventually ended up completing my undergraduate degree and even went to graduate school at UC Irvine, I participated in all these programs that I name here. And these acronyms might not mean much to you, but these are programs that are funded mostly by the NIH, that provide monies to students that want to do research, right? So there is money out there for you to do research if you want to. And through these funded programs, I got to study the genetic relationships in bacterial evolution. I got to do a project on detecting HIV subtypes. And I even got to go to Spain to study how the gut microbiota might be associated with Crohn's disease. And so you can ask me more questions about those particular projects, but I think what I really got out of participating in these programs was an experience on, one, how to do research. I got paid, so that was sweet. And then also it taught me kind of like, it started to give me a more rooted sense of what it actually takes to do this work and to be a scientist. In graduate school, I continued to study the gut, and I studied pathogens that infect the gut. And the work that I did, I guess, was impressive enough to even be highlighted on the cover of that month's Journal of Cell Host and Microbe. So you can look that up. It was a lot of fun. I had a great experience with that. It wasn't all success. There was many failures along the way, and I'm happy to talk about those too. But now, as a postdoctoral scholar at UC Davis, I continue to study how pathogens infect a susceptible host, and it's varied. There's a lot of traits that are involved in why certain individuals are more susceptible to infections than others, and those are really questions that drive me to try to understand that. And I'm looking at a particular gene that's involved in immunity and how that's connected to malnutrition in my studies. So mentorship really matters, and it has affected me a lot. Like, it can come from anywhere and it can impact anybody. Pictured here with me is a group of my mentors. These are all pretty prominent microbiologists in their own right. And I think I'm really thankful for them, for the way that they've helped shape me as a scientist. And I think they do a lot to create change, even in the scientific community, so that it's more diverse and more equitable. And that's where I'll leave it there. And I think that continues to be part of my dream of hoping to contribute to equity and diversity in science as I move forward.
Okay, I'm next. I don't have a wonderful presentation like Vlad did. But I will say, like Vlad, I am also a child of the counterculture and from Central California. And I am neither Chicana or Native American, but my husband is Mexican American, and my daughter. And I grew up in California within the Mexican American communities. I'll also say that I had my second COVID shot and I'm a little like out of it today, so I'm going to be a little ditzy, but bear with me. But I do have notes. Okay, so my name is Dr. Cheryl Harrison. I'm a professor, soy profesora. I'm currently at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, which is a 90% Hispanic institution on the border of Texas and Mexico. And it's a really cool institution, but I am moving to Louisiana State University in the fall because they have a PhD program. But I'm very committed to diversifying the geosciences. So I am a oceanographer. I'm a biophysical ocean modeler. So I work a lot on pushing particles around and pretending they're baby turtles and looking at things like how nuclear war might affect fisheries. So we do all these different models about like climate change and transport, and it's really interesting. So I'm from Santa Cruz, California, where I believe SACNAS is headquartered. My parents were hippies. My grandparents were all working class and children of the Great Depression from the South and the Midwest. The people in my family were very smart, but had limited educational opportunities. And I'm the first person in any branch of my family to get a PhD, though my cousin got one recently. I'm very proud of her. I'm married to a Mexican American, but they're very Americanized. So he's like third generation, fourth generation. And like many people who grew up in like the 50s and 60s, they really beat the Spanish out of them to assimilate. But their hearts are very, Hispanic, very Mexican. So I'll tell you about my story. So I had my son when I was very young, and then I got my associate's degree in physics from Cabrillo College in Aptos, California. And then my bachelor's in mathematics from UC Santa Cruz. I loved community college. It was a wonderful educational experience. I was like so supported there, and I just felt like so cared for, and like it was just this like wonderful place. And because I had a young child, I needed to stay near my family to go to college. And so then I transferred to the local university just because that was really my only option. I was going to get a bachelor's in physics because I loved physics, but it was a very male-dominated culture, and I hated the culture. I loved the physics, hated the people. There were like no women. It was like 1% female, and they thought I was like someone's girlfriend all the time, and it was really frustrating. So I defected to the math department because they were cool. They were nice. There were female professors there. And then I graduated from mathematics with honors, which I'm really proud of. So then I had a second kid, and I took like 10 years off to raise my kids, and I worked. I tutored math and physics. I took care of my dad who had cancer. And I always wanted to go to grad school, but it was really hard to find the time and the money to do that because what was going on in my family. So after my father passed and my grandfather passed, he turns out he had money, which none of us, I didn't know this, and he left me some money. So I'm like, I want to go to grad school. That was my dream, right? I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I know I didn't want to go back to physics, and I wasn't really keen on math. I thought it's very esoteric, pure math. So I started taking some classes through the local university extension, and it's mostly like geared towards like senior citizens can go like sit in on a class, but I was like doing it to shop around and see what I wanted to do. And I took some geophysics classes, and I liked the earth science community, and I liked, it was very applied, and I really liked that. And so I applied to the Earth and Planetary Science program there. And I got in, and it was really my only option because I had kids, and it was like, how am I going to do this? And it turned out to be one of the most prestigious Earth and Planetary Science departments in the country. I had no idea, but this like worked out. So this is very important when you're going into academia to have like a good pedigree. And I was very fortunate stumbling into that. So my initial plan was to get a master's degree. So I had no idea how to navigate academia because no one in my family had ever done it. And they often gave me really well-meaning but terrible advice about what to do. So I was like, well, I'll get a master's degree and I'll teach because that's very practical. And it was like, I'll teach at community college. I love community college. I'll go back there. But by the end of like my second year of my master's, I was like, I got hooked on science, and I was like, I can see how it would be worth it to go through getting a PhD, which is a huge time and financial commitment. And if you're older, you know, you're not working, you're not making money. So it's, I was like, okay, I can see how this is going to be really good. The hardest part for me was the power dynamics. So there's a lot of power dynamics in academia. And being raised in the counterculture, I was raised to not respect authority, like at all. So this was very frustrating for me, especially because I was in my 30s and I had run a business and I was being treated like I was very young. So that was hard for me to navigate. And it really hasn't gotten better until I got out of being like, now I'm a supervisor and I'm not a supervisee. And I get to run my lab in a way I'm more comfortable with, which is more that we're very caring to each other. A lot of my experience in academia, it's in the geoscience, is very male dominated, and it's very kind of brutal. Like it's like not very warm in a lot of instances, and I'm not comfortable with that. So now that I get to work with who I want to, and I pick my colleagues and I have my lab, it's much more comfortable for me. So that's kind of my, what else did I wanted to say? Yeah, that's my short thing. And I guess I'll leave the rest for questions later. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for those introductions. A lot of amazing information. So I'm going to go into the next question. So what is your advice to a current community college student who wants to go in the STEM discipline? And on top of that, is there anything you would have personally done different? Thinking back in early on in your journey as a scientist.
I think I'll start with this one.
Okay.
I wish I had asked more questions. I was always very timid. I never really rose my hands because I never thought my question was smart or interesting, or I was always on the shyer side. So I wish I had just asked more questions. Looking back, like now I'm a postdoctoral scientist. I'm a nerd. I'm a scientist. What I do for a living is ask questions, ask meaningful questions. What is the significance of this, right? You change one variable, you measure some other variable. So what's the cause and effect? What's the relationship there? Why is this happening? What's the mechanism, right? We design experiments to answer meaningful questions, especially since I'm more in the clinical field looking at injury. And how can that translate to, not just from the lab, but hopefully someday, hopefully, to bedside, excuse me, from bench to bedside to a patient, right? I just wish I had asked more questions. I wish I had a more meaningful relationship with my professors by asking more questions. So the wonderful thing about a two-year college, and I agree with Dr. Harrison's comment, was that it was amazing. It was so, I felt very much sheltered. I felt that the faculty were rooting for me, that they wanted me to succeed. They were always there for me. They had these office hours. I wasn't just a number. I was one of their students, and I saw that. So take advantage of office hours. Take advantage of getting to know your professors. Ask how they got there. Ask about, if they did research, if research is something you're interested in, ask about that. Ask about their pathway, their journey. In addition to obviously, your core subjects and so forth. I just wish I had built a network sooner, a support network sooner. So.
Off of that note, I think yeah, I would add that, like, that's one of the things that I felt that helped me a lot, is to have a network of mentors that supported my success. And believe it or not, like, and I think I went into it skeptical, like, what do these white people want out of me, right? Like, I don't know why they're willing to help me out. And so I went into it super skeptical, but I I learned over time that I think there's people that have a genuine interest in investing in you, in wanting to see you succeed. They notice your potential, and they want to support you in any way that they can. And so the way I would describe it now is like, I think one of the things I started to do unconsciously is to, like, you know, choose who were going to be my tios and my tias, right? My uncles and my aunts, my extended family. And I think that comes culturally from the way that I was brought up, right? That, like, thinking that we don't do this alone. We do it, we kind of grow together as a community. And I leaned on that kind of process to help me navigate higher education. And so think about who's going to be that uncle and aunt, that cousin, you know, those near to peer mentors that are really going to help you navigate these challenging situations, because it's not easy. One of the things about the culture of science is that we celebrate individuals and individual achievements. And I think that really masks how science is actually done in community and in collaboration. And I think that does a disservice to younger students to really tell them, we don't do this alone. I shared my story, and I shared what I've been able to do and accomplish and where I'm at right now. But like, you know, my encouragement is that, like, I couldn't have gotten here on my own. I had a lot of help. And so really work hard to cultivate those mentoring networks, because we all need them.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I'd like to add something to that comment. Working for the STEM program, for example, at Cypress College, a community college, like you're saying, you know, tias and tios, and look at this motto up here, we take this journey together. And we are your advocates. We are pushing for you. We are advocating to get as many resources to help you be successful. And so I think one of the things I encourage you to do, personally, I know I'm moderating, but I have to say this, is to get involved in a program that has this community that's ready to give to you, right? To be of service for you, and to be a tia or a tio, right? Because you can easily find those relationships within your counselors, within coordinators, you know, anything STEM, anything MESA, you know what I mean? All these amazing, you know, EOPNS, all these amazing programs that community colleges offer. And so that's my encouragement to you. You can even find these types of relationships within these special programs. Just want to add that. Dr.
Yeah. My message is going to community college is you're very okay. So let me roll back and gather my thoughts. I had a much better education in mathematics and physics at community college than my peers at university. I was taught by people who were professional educators, who really cared. And my cohort, when I transferred, were in these 100 to 300 kid classes with lecturers who did not want to be there. And I was extremely well prepared compared to them. So my message to the students is, you're going to do great. Like, you're going to do great. So feel proud of what you've accomplished. And look at the prestige of the institution you're going to. That's really important. I didn't do that. I was lucky. So don't be like me. Look up, you know, and if you want to come to Louisiana State University, I will sponsor you. I'll be your tia. So you can send me an email. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that if you're in a situation in a lab or something and you don't like it, you can change. Like, you don't have to, you don't have to have fidelity. Yeah, there's a lot of people in academia who are not nice, and you don't have to work with them. You can find nice people. And then the third thing I want to say is to really push for the geosciences. So Earth, planetary, climate, oceanography is doing a huge push to diversify right now. And that means there's tons of money. There's funding for students, for undergraduate research, summer programs, for graduate studies. There's tons of scholarships. So take advantage of that. And we need you. And we need you because the diversity of thought and ideas is really important for the science, but also when we're talking about environmental justice and climate change, we need people to focus on the problems that affect their communities. So we need a great diversity of people from all over the world for that. So come.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. The next question is, how do you navigate academia and/or industry while remaining true to your own identity or culture?
There's no easy answer to that. There's probably many answers, and you're gonna figure out what the right mix of solutions is for you, particular in your context, and that's dynamic. It'll change over time, but that's not fair to just leave it at that, right? So I think there are these like social and cultural capital that we carry from things that we've learned from our life experiences that are going to really help you figure that out. One of the things that helped me figure that out was kind of like being bicultural, like, you know, having Mexican heritage, but growing up in the US taught me to code switch, right? And to like figure out like, you know, how do I respond to this culture that I don't really understand, that I'm starting to interface with. So being bicultural helped me to like do those things, but I was struggling really with like, am I losing pieces of myself because there's less people that look like me that bring their cultural perspective into this space, and I'm only one, right? Or a handful. And so I think there, like, as I struggled through that over time, I think I got more and more comfortable with being comfortable with who I am. And that's just been a lifelong struggle, right? Like being Mexican American here in the US as a first generation immigrant, it's just like learning to accept the fact that that's my heritage. I'm here to stay. And I have to, over time, just kind of have to be more confident and comfortable to be myself, and to allow people to see that. Because believe it or not, even the dominant culture misses out on an opportunity to enrich their own life and life experience, and you hold back and you just try to kind of pretend to fit the mold, right? And you're not loud or proud. So I guess to sum it up in a way, just continue to be loud and proud. I mean, yeah, if we learned anything from some of the responses to social unrest, that's one way to do it.
Thank you.
I would like to extend that about, in particular for me, it was imposter syndrome. So I didn't necessarily feel it in Miami when I was an undergrad. So between Miami-Dade College and University of Miami, because I was still home. I was a commuter student. I was very much at home. I was near my family. I was near my friends. It was my life. It was here. It wasn't until I actually did a summer internship. That was one of the requirements of the undergrad program that I was in, was to do a summer internship outside of the state of Florida. So it was my first time away from home. It's terrifying, actually. And I landed in Boston because the program matched you based on your interests. So here I was, a Cuban American girl, never left home, about to spend 10 weeks up in Boston, in the Northeast, Boston, Massachusetts. Yeah. It was terrifying. I thought like that was a mistake. I was in pure denial for like 2 weeks after that email. I was like, no, they're gonna write back saying that, sorry, you're matched somewhere else. You're not going to Boston. Because I was really in shock that I was like, no, my merits, like, you know, my resume or whatever, my GPA wasn't that stellar, that merited for me to go to Boston in Harvard Medical School. I was like, I'm sorry, that's not for me. But no, it was not a mistake. They really meant that email for a Madeline Diaz. And so I went. And I was like one of two Hispanic students in the cohort, the only Hispanic person in the lab. It was very foreign, very, very foreign. I've never heard my accent so much. It was the first time I really realized I had an accent. Growing up, I just never, I don't know, I thought I spoke perfect English and my Spanish was okay. Guess not. I was so self-conscious of every word I said, of every email that I wrote, of, you know, lab meetings when it was my turn to present, or, you know, if we were discussing a paper, you know, whether I interpreted it right, or anyway, I was very, very self-conscious of that. As to how I overcame it, it was a long journey. I wish I can tell you, you know, by the end of that summer internship, I got it over it. I can't tell you that. I ended up going to grad school, as I said, in the Boston area. So ironically enough, I really enjoyed the city. I thought, you know, for grad school, I knew I wanted to pursue higher education. Research was something that was really interesting for me. I thought that this, you know, I would be happy to do research. I don't know what, I just wanted to do research. And so I applied to all the Boston schools, and eventually I matched with Brandeis University, and it was a fantastic university, just outside the Boston area. It's a smaller school, smaller like private school. But it was a sense of people. I felt like a sense of like welcoming in the community in there that helped me get through this imposter syndrome. Like, yes, I have merits. Yes, I have something of talent, something of intellect, something that warranted me to be accepted for that summer program, to be accepted for grad school, to complete a thesis. And here I am to continue to do research as a postdoctoral fellow. So I'm back in the University of Miami to do that. So I don't know, just don't let imposter syndrome, if you have imposter syndrome, don't let it get to you. I know it's so much easier said than done. For me, it was really a long journey, a long journey to accept that yes, I deserve to be here. I deserve a seat at this table. My voice will be heard just as it will, you know, just as you are also speaking here. Do not convince yourself that you do not deserve a seat at that table, that you do not deserve to be in that room, because you do. You've worked hard, you had a goal, and you will accomplish that goal.
Wonderful.
I'll leave it at that.
Dr. Diaz, and thank you for sharing. And just for those who are not familiar with the term imposter syndrome, can you give us just a brief of what that is? What is that?
Yes. So here's my definition. Please chime in if you would like to add anything else. So it is the sense that you do not belong, right? The imposter, that you will be revealed for really who you are, and that you do not belong in a given situation. I'm not sure how else best to describe it. If Dr. Harrison or Dr. Diaz Ochoa,
I can say where it comes
would like to chime in.
Yeah, I actually read the paper that started this. So it is based on a study, I think it was a psychology or maybe sociology study of female professors at Harvard. And all of these female professors at Harvard felt like they didn't belong, like they weren't good enough, even though they had achieved becoming professors at Harvard. Yeah, and so I think a lot of it for us is it's internalizing these microaggressions, you know, that we're not, or there's not representation. Like we don't see people like us, people don't talk like us, people don't, you know, it's just not a comfortable environment. And so you start to internalize that thinking, I mean, or it's just explicitly you're made to feel unwelcome. That happens as well. Yeah. So I have something to share about imposter syndrome, but first I just want to say to all the students listening, and this really echoes what the other panelists has said, the difference between all of the students listening to this who went to community college and the students who went to Harvard and Stanford and Yale is just privilege and opportunity. You guys are just as smart, if not smarter, and you're probably harder workers than they are. So, you know, you have every everything going for you. So I just encourage you to be proud of who you are and what you've achieved. And how I deal with imposter syndrome. So I'm from California, from the Bay Area, and the closest thing to an Ivy League is Stanford. And so I play this game called What Would Stanford Guy Do? So that was the only like elite like Ivy League type people I knew. And Stanford Guy would like man spread and take up lots of, so I just play act. It's like acting, take up lots of space and project my voice and just act like an Ivy League person, you know? So you can watch videos like of what they, you know, go watch a seminar or something. And I just started acting like that and using those like language cues, and it's very effective. Like it works really well. So that's, you know, play what would Ivy League guy do? An Ivy League guy would think, of course I deserve this fellowship or this opportunity. I'm awesome, right? I deserve all of this. And so, you know, fake it till you make it. That's my biggest advice. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the ways imposter syndrome really attacks us is that it's despite the evidence to the contrary, right? Despite your successes and your achievements, and even the ways that you've traversed the hardship that you and your families have experienced to get to where you're at. Like it's hard for us to internalize the belief that we're successful. And so, yeah, when I coach students, I also tell them like, we build these narratives about ourselves and our belonging in the world throughout our lives, right? And for those of us that have been part of marginalized communities, like those narratives often tell us like we don't belong. And so to kind of combat that narrative, you have to start building a counter, almost revolutionary type of narrative that tells you the opposite, right? Like just like Dr. Harrison was saying, it's like you do have to start telling yourself and internalizing to yourself that like, yes, you belong here, you deserve this, and you're going to continue to work hard and walk humbly and help others and do all those wonderful things you already do. So, and I think for me, first they had to come externally, like people had to start telling me like, no, you deserve this. And then before I could start internalizing it for myself, but over time you have to do the hard work of letting those voices become your voice that speak the just that abundant grace, right? That tells you that you're awesome.
I'll add one more thing to that too. Like for me, it's always hard for me to do things for myself. I think it's just like my moral, I'm a Buddhist, so it's like I'm like my whole thing is to be selfless. Like, and so my whole like, okay, so if I am successful in academia, then I can open the door to other people. So the more power I can have, the more I can change things, right? Like, so the more I can do to help others. And so it is revolutionary in that sense, is that the more prestige you can gain and the more you can accomplish, the more you can help other people who are like you or not like you, but who deserve a place at the table.
Just to extend to that, I think that's so powerful. Once you've changed that goal, right? Once you're in that room, you're in that table, be sure, like remain humble, right? Like always like look back, because there's always another student. There's always another person who is trying to climb that ladder, who's trying to get into that room, right? Don't be afraid to just help open that door or help, make room in that table to allow for that person. So I guess just what I want to say is, don't forget that once you make it, and you will make it, don't forget to help push it forward, right? So don't forget to come back to SACNAS, right? The SACNAS family that's here. Don't forget to go back to your community college, right? To your old counselor or those old professors. For all you know, you can rekindle those relationships again, right? You can guest lecture or help mentor the current students that are there. And that'll be so appreciated. And it'll be fulfilling and rewarding for you. And you get to help another person. And I think that is absolutely beautiful. Something that I'm personally trying to do now that I'm back in Miami. So I've been here back for 2 years now. And I'm trying to, recreate these relationships that I have. So I'm trying to do more work with my local high school, the high school I went to, Miami-Dade College as well, and it's so rewarding, right? I'm like constantly like flashing back. I'm like, dude, I was in your position like 10 years ago. Not to date myself, but I was in your shoes like 10 years ago, right? I've done so much and I've come so far, and here I am. And I'm more than happy to share any advice. I'm more than happy to talk to any of you. Please look me up. I'll put my email in the chat. So anything, I'm more than happy to discuss any of the topics or struggles or obstacles or even programs or funding, how to choose a transfer school, how to look for the summer programs. Like really, no questions too small, right? Ask questions, ask your support network, reach out to any one of us. Again, we're here for you. And all you have to do is just ask. It really is sometimes that simple. I've had very, very few people say no because they really didn't have the time or whatever the reason was. But often if you ask for help, I've rarely had a no. So
Wonderful.
we're here for you.
Pay it forward, everybody. Love it. And actually, that's very timely that you made that comment about asking for help. The next question is very, well, it has to do with your last comment. So how could community college students look for internships, research opportunities while, obviously at the community college? I found that in my personal experience talking to students, they're extremely intimidated by the whole process. Just research, it's like I literally had a student one time tell me, I'll never forget, the summer research opportunity that you're telling me to apply for, it's over my caliber. Like, don't you understand? It's just like, could not process even applying to this opportunity. Same thing, much less internships at the community college level. So can you all please share about that? First, that mindset, and then going after these opportunities and navigating, even asking for a letter of recommendation, which is another, I feel, has been another barrier for a lot of our students.
I guess I can start. So your counselor, your advisor, your program director, whatever title that person has that helps guide you along your courses and extracurricular activities and opportunities, that person will likely know your science professors, if say biology or chemistry or physics, and just globally, just grouping sciences in general. Maybe they know of programs. If not, they have friends who would know of programs, right? So everybody talks to each other. So, you never know who your first degree contact knows. Like, you just, again, you have to ask, and then I'm sure that person will put you in contact with the other people as well. For me personally, it was my program director. So I was part of a program, the Bridges program, which is one of the NIH funded programs that Dr. Diaz Ochoa referred to. So I was also in one of those programs here at Miami-Dade College. So it was my program director who helped facilitate a lot of that. Thankfully, they already had a grant funding for that. So it's just a matter of me just saying, hey, I'm interested. And I was in, and I got to do paid research and all that stuff. If you don't have such a program director, or essentially Google. So just try to see what summer internships are out there. Almost every university, almost every program or department has some sort of summer internship. I know things are really tough right now. We're still very much in a COVID-19 pandemic. This is still very much a virtual world. However, several programs, and I can say at least for the University of Miami, several programs, the summer internships are virtual. So you do get to do online research. It is a bit more computational because of just the nature of the platform, but you still get to do research. You still get to meet with a professor. You still get to meet and have a network of a lab group that you get to interact with. You still have the same opportunities of presenting, of, at the end, you do get to present a poster or a short talk, and it's still something very much for your resume. So I know things are really intimidating right now, more so, but there are opportunities out there. It's just a matter of asking the right people or searching online. And there are opportunities right now, virtual or not. I know it's not ideal. It would be better in person. Maybe some programs are doing in person as vaccinations are, coming out and so forth. But at least here in the University of Miami, there are programs and there are virtual. And it's either 6 weeks or 10 weeks, I think is like a normal time frame. From what I've gathered, all of them are paid for. So you get a pretty decent stipend of at least, I don't know what the numbers are now, like $4,000 or something like that, 3,500 paid for. You get paid for to complete, whatever it is, 10 weeks of research. So it's a pretty nice gig. And you never know, again, those connections that can refer you for either for transfer if you transfer to a four-year university, where those connections can lead you or beyond as well. As for the letters of recommendation, who knows you best, right? So it's not just, hey, this is Professor so-and-so because I got an A in your class, can you please write me a letter? Those letters, frankly, are very bare bones. They're not like, what can that professor say about you, whether your character, your merits, what you've done, if you haven't really had a conversation with that professor. You get me? So go for the one who really knows you, who you've had that conversation, you've dropped by their office hours, you have some sort of relationship with, and that person can speak volumes and volumes to who you are and why you deserve to be in that summer internship.
I would say 3 things. I don't know if anybody could relate to this, but I think I just didn't apply to a bunch of things because of the fear of rejection, right? That fear of rejection, like, was almost kind of this thing where, like, it confirmed that I truly didn't belong, right? So it was just kind of like this battle between imposter syndrome and kind of like this internal struggle I was having, right? So that may be something you might be going through. And I think one thing that being a scientist and doing science has taught me is that, like, I'm gonna fail a lot. Science is mostly failure, and every now and again, right? Like, we have these breakthroughs. And I think over time, just having that experience over and over and over again taught me that I just have to try. I have to try, throw in my application, throw in my, apply for this opportunity and see how it goes, and use that. Just like I do with my experiments, like, use that as a learning, teaching experience for myself. Like, if I didn't get it, what did I learn from it? Maybe I learned that, like, I was working on it at the last minute and I need more time, to put something like that together. Or maybe I learned that I need to work on cultivating my relationships with my network of mentors so that they can write stronger letters for me, right? And so, like, those are like data points that you figure out as you try. And so I would just say, like, go for it, because it's for sure a no if you never apply, right? But apply and see how it goes. And there's going to be those opportunities where the door opens, and just step through and take those opportunities. So yeah, those are a couple of things I wanted to say. And lastly, so I am most familiar with the Bridges program at UC Irvine, and just kind of the programs that are funded to mentor and support community college students through research experiences there. I'm happy to connect you with the co-director of that program, and be an advocate for you to, like, go there and start, doing research at UCI. I love that program. It helped make me into a scientist. And so if you want to talk more about it, yeah, we can definitely chat afterwards.
Ochoa, what program is that you're talking about?
At the University of California, Irvine, is called the Minority Science Programs. And they fund multiple programs, but one of them is the Bridges program for community college students.
So I want to just be an example of someone who didn't do any research when they were a community college student, because I had little kids and family responsibilities and like a job. So like there was no time for any of that, and it worked out okay in the end. So if you can't do it, it's okay. And second, I will say that, so I'm at the stage of my career where I'm writing grants to get funding to do research. And one of the important aspects of these grants are your broader impacts. And the funding agencies like to fund people who give minority students opportunities. And this is not about the students really like making a big impact on the research and like publishing a paper necessarily. It's that they get the opportunity to do that. So when you all like come work at a person like my lab, you make me look good to the funding agency. So they go, oh, she did that. That's great. We're going to fund her again. So you're helping me. Like, so it's not like, and it doesn't matter if you like do some like amazing thing. Like it's more about getting that experience and building your self-confidence, like, and just having the experience. So these summer internships are really to develop talent, right? So and then the other thing I'll say is that what Vlad said, just make yourself apply. So when I was applying for faculty jobs, I had huge imposter syndrome, and like, there's no way. I would just make myself do it. I made a list. My role was anything I could possibly like apply for, I had to. And every Friday afternoon, I had my little check boxes. And it was really hard at first. And then it was just become like, okay, this is what I do on Friday afternoon is I apply for jobs. And I just made self-discipline, just make yourself apply. It doesn't cost anything to apply. The worst thing, they're just gonna say no. But then like the best thing is they're gonna pay you. Like you'll get opportunities. And like I said, everyone is really keen. We know we have diversity problem in the sciences, especially in the geosciences, and everyone is very keen to broaden participation. And that said, I have a lot of funding right now this summer and I don't have enough students. So if you're really keen on programming, please send me an email. You don't have to be a good programmer. You just have to want to program. And my lab is mostly Hispanic and my scientific programmer is Latina. So she would be the one to train you. So I'll be your TA, come and work for me and we'll code. So seriously, en serio, hit me up.
Wonderful. The power of networking.
That's amazing. I also like to put in a plug for the University of Miami. I know a couple of the directors who do the summer programs. I don't know the deadlines, but typically there are spaces still. So I don't think it's necessarily too late for the summer. Just, again, ask, reach out, just inquire. You never know where that's going to lead you.
Yeah, and I'll add to, like, so when you're in like your second year, when you're getting ready to apply, transfer to university, that's a really good time to be applying for fellowships for undergraduate that will pay for your tuition and stuff. I have a list of them on my website. Like I had my undergrad make a whole, she did a really pretty job. She put all the like little symbols and stuff. So there's a bunch of them there that are in my field, and there's just tons of them. And like, just make yourself apply, get your things together. I'm sure we would all like give you feedback on your application materials. Like there are lots of people here who would help you have a good packet for applying. So I'll also beyond summer programs, start applying for fellowships because it's nice to get paid and not have to work at like, you know, food service or something.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This is all such amazing information. Okay, so another question. I know we have 15 minutes, so I just want to, well, a little less than that. So I just want to make sure we're on time here. But so the other question is, so what are the career options for STEM students in your areas? What degrees are required for them? And how do you decide what is right for me? So this is a student asking.
That's such a great question.
So like I mentioned before, I study infectious diseases and the immune response to that. And it really ranges. People in my discipline have gone to become professors of universities. but also like the wonderful instructors at the state level and community college level. So like that's kind of the academic space in which you're involved in education and in research. But also some really good friends of mine have gone on to go and consult for big hedge fund firms that tell investors where to put their money, right? Because those places, they need this expertise to know like what's the latest, greatest biotechnology that's out there to be investing in, right? So there's those kinds of jobs too. They pay really well. You travel a lot. There's jobs in government, right? I think the pandemic has really highlighted the importance of having experts at all stages of government, really informing areas of where government can be playing a role in the health of the nation, right? And scientists play a critical part of that at the CDC, you know, in the White House, and in different scientific funding agencies, the NIH and the NSF. So those are kind of like the big three spaces that people often think about. And I think, but there are other career paths that are just out there. The one thing I do want to say, I think to add to that is that science is universal. So once you get kind of like an advanced degree in science, you could literally go do that work anywhere in the world. So if you want to go abroad and work in a different country, in a different place, and that excites you, like you can move you take your degree with you, and that'll be worth something in other places. And you don't have to do these examinations where like you have to be accredited to be a scientist, because once you have that PhD or that master's degree, like that's pretty much universally recognized, especially from top institutions in the US.
Wonderful.
Yeah, everything he said and more. So just to expand to that, within the academic world, there's also just education. So teaching outreach, if that's something that is one of your passions as well, or even just administration within academia. So imagine being like a department chair or like a dean or provost, like one of these, you know, fancy titles that you're like, okay, yeah, that person sends an email every now and then. Yeah, you can be at that level to also manage your department, or at a university level, help administer how these programs are being run, whether it's funding, you know, create these programs, etc. That's within academia. Industry, of course, is, as Dr. Diaz Ochoa said, like you can do so much in industry, whether it's consulting or, you know, still do bench work or computational work just for a biotech company, big or small, it's all good. Science policy, so working with the government to help create policy, science advocacy also. So trying to get that science in there to help create good policy. Of course, now with the pandemic, public health is of the utmost importance, and there's a lot of policy regarding that. The Society for Neuroscience website has a fantastic several resources on there as to how, in any level, just anyone who is a scientist, any interest in science, can apply their skills. So just communication or just their interest, just energy, time. That's what I mean by skills, not necessarily technical skills, just the time and effort to help reform policy, whether it's at the local level with your local city or state, to the federal as well. So that's, I guess, more as a PhD, where you can pretty much do anything. It really is such a versatile degree and tool that it's university recognized, as he said, and it's, you know, you can do so much. As to whether it's the right fit for me, so I guess the latter part of the question, I don't want to say you just know, because I feel like that is underwhelming to say, but you have an idea of what interests you, right? What really makes you passionate? Is it the talking to people? Is it the communication aspect of it? Do you like to doodle? Like, is illustration, science illustration, like really your thing? Do you like the teaching aspect of it? Do you like the bench work aspect of it? Like, depending on what these soft skills are, right, can guide you as to which one you would like. How do you know what you like? Just give it a try, right? This is a time to explore, right? This is a time where right now you're taking all of these classes. I know it's overwhelming because you have a lot of core curriculum to fulfill, but this is your time to explore, right? This is time to take, okay, that class sounds fun. I'm going to explore that topic. Or I never really considered that part of psychology, so I'm going to take that extra class. Or, you know, physics seems really scary, but I'm going to try it anyway. Whatever it is, just give it a try. You never know where that, again, will lead you. And all of these experiences help build up to help create and shape your character. As for more, I guess, closer to the future, because I know a PhD sounds so far away. Like there's so much work and so much time between here to then. I guess for a bachelor's, so, and I say bachelor's really because it's really difficult to get into research with an AA alone. So once you transfer into a four-year university and you get your bachelor's, you can get a pretty good research position, right? Research, I don't know what the title is, research staff or technician, you know, whatever the job title is. And you can do research for a solid like a year or two, then just explore a different field if that's something that interests you. And that's quite common. It's actually much more common now to take that gap year. So once you get your bachelor's, get some research experience, do that for some time, whether it's a year or two. If you like that field, whether it's neuroscience or microbiology or immunology or physics or frankly anything, right? Whatever's your passion. See if you like it. And if you don't, I think Dr. Harrison said this, then switch, leave that group and go for another one, right? That's the nice thing about science, or really about this field in general. It's the flexibility for that. All experience is relevant. Even like right now, your like biolab courses and your like physics courses, like your lab courses, that's like relevant experience. So you can put that for your resume, by the way, for like right now for your summer internships and so forth, or you know, for these financial packages also you're applying for. So so yeah, I don't know, does that make sense? I hope so. Okay.
And so I'll plug the geosciences. So the biggest problem facing humanity is climate change. Like it's really endangering our ability to live on this planet. And there's no alternative. We can't all leave and go somewhere else. That's not gonna happen. And so within that, there's a number, it's a huge growing field of all of these people working on climate within academia, but also a lot within business, looking at climate analytics, like analyzing climate data, thinking about risks. And it's just going crazy. Like, so if you know, and that's something you can do. It's in environmental science and agricultural science, in all the different sciences, you need people doing these data analytics things. And so I would encourage you all to do some programming. I didn't take programming classes. I just learned, like most programmers, scientific programmers I know are self-taught. So you can sign up for data camp and do some tutorials. And there's a lot of post-bachelor jobs, like at the national labs, like Los Alamos National Lab. I think they pay like $60K for like post-bachelors, which is like, I never made that much at that stage in my career. So there's, if you get into it, there's a lot of opportunities within the sciences and all these different sectors. And what I found working with the kids from UTRGV, which is 90-something% Hispanic, is that a lot of times agencies like, you know, the USDA or USGS, they'll want Hispanic people working for the organization where they have Hispanic people that they're serving to like act as a bridge. So there's a lot of extra opportunities, and a huge percentage of our country is Hispanic. So that's, you know, like there's a lot of opportunities there. So that's all I have to say. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So you know what? We have 2 minutes, but I really think this last question, if you can just say in one sentence or one sentence and a half. As a current community college student, what skills should I concentrate on so it can benefit me later? Give me a power statement.
I would say be self-reflective. So your life is an experiment, just like in science. Then you're gonna fail a lot, but can you learn from those failures so that you can set up the next thing you're gonna try for success?
I'll say take the calculus-based physics sequence. Don't take the easy science. Take the harder ones. It's gonna set you up better.
True and true, very much. I guess I'm gonna go with this cliche. First attempt in learning, FAIL, fail. First attempt in learning, right? So just because you made a mistake, just because it didn't go well that first time that you did it or as you expected, don't give up. Just try it and try again, and you will get there. I promise you will get there. It's not gonna be easy. It's not always gonna be easy, but it's like that metaphor, like the iceberg, right? You always see the tip of success. You never see like all the struggles and the obstacles and the failures that really build to that. So try again.
Well, thank you so much. A round of applause to our amazing speakers. Thank you so much. And I mean, I'm just encouraged to be here and share this space with you all and all the amazing information that you shared today. I know our students are, I'm sure they gained a lot from everything you shared. And I want to now hand the stage over to Katarina.
Thank you, all of the speakers. Thank you, Annette, for moderating this session. Now to all our attendees, if you had a great time today, the fun is not over. We'll be waiting for you all to join us tomorrow for day 2 at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Finally, SACNAS is a data-driven organization, and your feedback is essential for us as we continue to improve our programs to better serve you. You will be receiving an email with the short evaluation survey in a few days. Please take the time to fill out for a chance to be one of 5 winners of Amazon gift cards. Thank you all again for attending our first day of SACNAS Community College Day today. I hope you enjoyed your time and are leaving equipped and energized for your next steps in your academic career. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow.